Now,
hello and welcome to the AI Revolution call. I'm Cody Willard. Right is Bryce Smith.
And I'm John Deo.
John Deo, as we like to say, John Deo. Follow him on Twitter. That's the handle. Bryce and I run a couple of tech funds. We invest in revolutionary technologies, i.e. the AI revolution. We've been in NVIDIA since 70 cents. In my personal account, I have been. The fund launched 6 years ago. NVIDIA was already, what do you think, probably $15-20 when the fund launched. We started buying it. Anyway, we like the revolutions. And the AI revolution is the most obvious one that's creating trillion-dollar economies right now. So we're here to talk about it. There's a lot of news. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks since we last did this call. John, is there something outstanding like that you want to hit first? Mind blowing.
Yeah, I'll say I heard it. I don't know the level of truth in it or whatever. Meta was making offers to try to get people from OpenAI to hire them, and so they'll give them a. Let's see if Cody heard what I said, but
yeah, no, this is all not true. This is all Sam Altman lies.
I'm telling you, and
your source is the biggest liar in AI.
I didn't hear it from him. But I heard him asked about it.
Yeah, and he lied. I mean, that is what it is. There's nobody getting there. First of all, there's nobody turning down $100 million.
Okay, see, I wasn't gonna. I was waiting for the call.
Yeah, exactly. And number two, there's no way that Meta's like willy-nilly offering random engineers over at OpenAI $100 million signing bonus. All a lie.
So then it's a big story.
Stop lying.
The level of lie is the big story then.
It is. That is some extreme lying going on. You saw, by the way, that Google IYO, which makes smart headphones, is now suing Sam Altman and Johnny Ive for stealing their ideas and using the name IO. And, again, like everything Sam Altman touches apparently is somehow dirty.
So, like, it's not only the name they're stealing, because I hadn't heard what the idea was.
It was smart. It was smart devices that you talk to. I mean,
but is it? Well, that doesn't say much. I mean, how do you can't like?
I know
that.
you can't. I'm just saying that simply they are being. It's once again Sam Altman's being sued for doing something slightly dishonest. That's my point.
Is it just the name that he took, or is it?
No, I think it's also. I think they're saying that Johnny Ive and Sam Altman all knew about Google IO. And they were pitched on it, and they followed it forever. And
it's Google IYO.
Google IYO. Google IO.
Oh yeah, IO1, IO audio. First IO audio computer with earbuds, and you're saying that's what Johnny Ives was making, was just a earbud thing,
apparently.
I just want to say I did get a call from Mark Zuckerberg, of course.
Yeah.
And I did turn down the $100 million. That's how much I love being here. So
yeah.
Well, of course, you're hoping for an even bigger payday over here at 10,000 days.
As my father used to say, I never struck out as a New York Yankee. So
yeah. So look, I mean, at the point of, I guess, let's get back to on track here. That Sam Altman lied and said that Meta was trying to poach their OpenAI's engineers for $100 million a pop, and I don't think there's any way that's happened or going to happen. And but it is amazing. It does underscore the fact that we, like all of us, when I heard it, I'm like, no. But it was for a moment, I'm like, yeah, maybe. I mean, baseball players make $50 million for throwing a ball. Like the AI revolution engineers are actually going to change the world here. And, you could see them getting that kind of money.
It's like
where you make that kind of money is an equity, not a signing bonus.
Well, a lot of times with equity, you sit around and wait for something to happen with your stock, and nothing does.
But I'm just saying that's how in the tech world, how you make $100 million is not a signing bonus. In the New York Yankee world, you make $100 million signing bonus, but you don't get any equity in the New York Yankees franchise.
But is that just a mistake of how things have been happening versus now, setting aside, it's a lie, right? But what would be bad about signing bonuses for,
as a shareholder in these companies, I want the engineers to be dependent on, I want their crazy wealth to be dependent upon the stock going crazy higher. That being said,
as a employee,
hold on, let me just finish. That being said, if you're Meta and you're spending $70 billion on CapEx this year to build AI infrastructure, $100 million is literally a rounding error at that point. So it's not inconceivable that those kinds of bonuses could be being thrown around. I'm just saying I 100% don't believe it happened.
If you were talking about like the top-notch
Correct.
guys,
like the man.
Yeah.
I think the speculation.
Alex, what's your cousin? Alex Bregman of AI Revolution.
There you go. I'll let you bring it up.
Yeah.
I think the speculation is that it's Ilya Sutskever who maybe got an offer of that magnitude.
He's not there.
That I actually, I can see
gone.
I thought he was still the head guy.
No, the other guy, Alex. Alec. What's it? Karpat?
Yeah, Ilya's gone. Meta sniffed around and tried to buy Ilya's new company, and it didn't happen. But they are trying to hire Ilya.
He started a company called like ASI, going after superintelligence directly, like no waypoints in between kind of thing, which I think is bogus. But some of these people, you did great at one place. I just don't know that they have the multiple hits in them.
This is always how it is. Other than the PayPal mafia, which even a lot of those guys did not really build much wealth afterward. There's the halo effect of being at an incredible company. Let's put it this way. Chamath Palihapitiya was Mark Zuckerberg's right-hand guy, and Chamath has done nothing but scam people for the last 6 years.
I wasn't going to put it out there that you don't like him, but you've said it before, so you just.
You know what? It sucks. I'd rather be one of these like perma-bull blind tech investor pundit guys who loves everybody, who does anything in technology all the time. But I happen to be this like cynical revolution investor guy. So on the one hand, I believe the technological revolutions, but on the other hand, I know that there are scams and frauds and bullshit and bad marketing and pointlessness of Wall Street machinations that suck money out of the system. And so I get mad at Chamath for being a scumbag, and I get mad at Sam Altman for lying and getting fired and somehow weaseling his way back into ChatGPT.
The guy I was thinking of was Greg Brockman. He's still one of the founders.
Yeah, Greg Brockman's still there.
He's the one that got. I don't know.
Kind of like, is he even technical? I know he is, but
I mean, Sam Altman's not.
Yeah,
he's a technical. He is technically adept at financial and corporate engineering. And
no, Brockman's the only one left from that original group of them, including the woman who was briefly CEO for like 2 days, Mira Murati.
I saw that she just raised money at like a $10 billion valuation or something, and they don't have a product or. I mean,
it's the crazy. It's 1999 all over again. Look, I have on one side of a page a brief description of what it is I want to go do.
I just push back. It's not 1999 because these companies are worth $10 billion, and like Meta really is spending $70 billion on this stuff. So it's not just VC money that's being spent and IPO proceeds that are being, bidding up Cisco routers and Sun Microsystem servers. But being able to have on your resume that you were a founder at ChatGPT, pretty much at this moment in time guarantees you a $10 billion valuation. Can I finish on, while we're at it, you know that Sam Altman apparently lied and said he was Y Combinator's chairman and he never had the job?
It's a technicality. He was offered the job and something.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of technicalities that are untrue around that guy. And then did you see that Chamath is like, he was like, hey, Twitter, should I do another scam SPAC? And Twitter was like 85, 90% like, hell no, don't. And he wrote back the next day like, nah, I think I'll do it. My theory, and then those scumbags at the All In Pod launched some stupid high, like probably $300 a bottle tequila business, ultra high end, whatever that bullshit is. Those guys, all of that stuff drives me crazy. And Chamath, I'll short whatever stock you bring public because you know it's going to be a piece of shit because you are too. Like, it is what it is.
Cody says all of that, and then he goes, and now look at my new.
Like what? What am I going to?
What are you offering? Man? I don't know. What do you got?
Have I ever scammed anybody like Chamath Palihapitiya and Scam Altman? No.
Never involving money.
What else is there?
What else is? See, he said, "What else is there?" By the way,
John, what other kind of scams are there? In all seriousness, we're in a public fucking forum, dude. Like, don't accuse me of scams over here.
I accused you of scamming, not involving money.
So what does that mean? Is what I'm asking.
It clearly means absolutely nothing, which is why you shouldn't worry about anything about the whole public forum.
Like in public, that's not very nice to throw it out there like that.
No, I know. Just like you just did to Sam Altman.
Well, he is a scam. He is a scam artist. That's why
the poor guy. He's just
Sam
trying
Altman can sue me if he's got the guts.
Wow. Yeah. No, for the record, Cody is not a scammer involving not money or money.
Or money. In any way, shape, or form.
If there's anything in between those two, I don't know.
John. Really appreciate those kind words.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the AI revolution. In all seriousness, there are some amazing developments happening, and I think we probably should get off of the yelling around Scamath and Chamath.
Oh, wait a second. Who started the scam talk?
I'm saying I should stop. We should stop talking about those guys and talk about the good stuff because that's what we're here to talk about.
Well, okay, what's good stuff?
Bryce?
I built an app. We can talk about my app. I'll just shamelessly self-promote.
Let's start there.
One of the cool things, it's not about me, but the Google AI Studio, I think is the most underrated AI app that you can use, and you can use it to make your own AI applications. And
is Firebase involved with that?
Yes. So there's the Firebase AI Studio, which I've tried to play with, and I don't find as helpful because I don't have much coding and back-end developer experience. I don't have any experience in that. But Google AI Studio is so simple. I can literally just vibe code in English and make cool apps. And I can paste an article in there and turn this article into an interactive app that people can click through and learn that way instead of reading a page. And the Google AI Studio just does it. And then you can link it up with the cloud and publish it. You don't have to make a domain name or anything. It just exists and it's out there. You can share it.
Or you can embed it in an iframe on our website, which is what we've done on Bryce built a sentiment tracker for our subscribers. And so they can at any point go on the sentiment voting page, which is an iframe web app that Bryce built. And pull it up if you would, Bryce. I think that's what you're doing anyway.
Yeah, I'll show you.
It's pretty amazing, John. He's and then just the other day, Bryce, I'm always asking Bryce, hey, what's our long short positioning in the hedge fund? Delta adjusted, not delta adjusted, blah, blah, blah. And the other day he was like, I'm going to vibe code a web app that can track our long short exposure in the fund. So here's the web app on the web, on the tradingwithcody.com website, which tracks our subscribers' sentiment.
Right. So you come in here, you vote, maybe you're bearish because of the war, geopolitics, technicals, or there's war as an option. You submit your vote, right? And it tracks it over time. And then Gemini, we have a built-in Gemini API, which interprets what the subscriber's sentiment shows here. And then here's, it tracks it on a weekly basis over time. So I mean, it's a cool little thing that I built in an hour, probably.
I mean, and if you were going to try to do this 2 years ago, you would have gone to Fiverr.com or Upwork.com and hired some freelance programmer and hoped and prayed that you could convey to him what it was you were trying to do and get it built for thousands of dollars over weeks of work.
Hey, Bryce.
Yes.
What did you did it do what you intended, or did it do some stuff and you're like, oh, that looks good? You know, I hadn't thought of that, but, or like how much of it is like you saying, put this in the upper left, that kind of thing?
But it's both, John. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned in the vibe coding is, you kind of come up with a concept, but then it's truly like this synergistic thing between you, or collaborative thing between you and the AI. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I want the subscriber sentiment stuff over here, and I tell it to move it to the left and bring the tracking thing up to the right, and then it does that. And maybe I want to change the color scheme to dark blue instead of red, and it'll do all those things. So it is kind of like a joint back and forth. It makes the core functionality pretty quick. And then one of the other things I'll do, I was like, how can we add more functionality and just have it generate ideas? And I'm like, oh, I like the third idea you had. Let's add that. And so that's what vibe coding sort of is. It's not just like one prompt and you make an app. It's like you work with the AI back and forth to make it really cool and functional and pretty and however you want it to look.
And perhaps most importantly out of all of this, the takeaway is that, Bryce and I have been talking about with you, John, for months at a time, that we think the idea that like software developers' jobs are suddenly at risk or something is short-sighted, because this is an example of Bryce and I never really thought about all the different software web apps that we could use in our day-to-day lives to make ourselves more productive, more efficient, smarter, more engaged, content creation, whatever it might be. And it is a constant now with Bryce since he started doing this with Gemini, Google Gemini AI stuff. I mean, it's just like every day he's like, oh, here's another thing I built. Here's another
like it's what we had said where it's what we said where it's like it's like demand goes up.
Yeah.
You have this thing and it's like you haven't put any program out of business because you weren't hiring them before. But you go to do this thing, you're like, oh, I can do that. And it expands on even like the demand for.
And you would just picture that, this Bryce doing this creates demand for server compute. It creates demand for different layers of the stack of software and hardware throughout Google's cloud. And collectively, as more and more people are vibe coding random web apps that make themselves more productive and more efficient, there will be more demand for coders in the stacks at Google itself and needing to make this stuff more pliable and functional and better and faster. Bryce, you're about to show something else, I think.
Yeah, this is just another app I made to show, go to an investment conference in Vail last week. And we presented on Google as our investment idea. And so instead of giving them a PowerPoint like everybody else does with 500 bullet points on it, I made this interactive app. It's got our investment thesis in here. You can click through it. It has basically our take. This is from my article I wrote about Google. And then you can, again, it's got Gemini built into it, and it speaks in Cody's voice. And you can ask the Gemini questions, or we have some pre-built prompts you can ask the Gemini about this specific part of the thesis. So again, just another app. I spent 3 or 4 hours making this one. This is a little bit more extensive, but.
And then, John, here's another example of how this sort of snowballs, right? So we've been talking about for the last 3 months how Bryce and I are playing around with making a digital clone of Cody that people can talk to, literally my voice, all of our analysis programmed into it, so it can try to convey some of how we see the world and when it answers the questions and whatnot. And so Bryce was trying to get everything on tradingwithcody.com into that new Cody clone, and he was having formatting, like trying to get it all to talk. It's behind a paywall, some of it, nah. And so then he was like, hey, Google AI, can you create a file? And it created a JSON file. And Bryce uploaded that to the Cody clone. And now it has literally all of our latest thinking that's even behind a paywall. And it was only done because Google's AI coding, vibe coding, productivity enhancement to Bryce enabled to just sort of, let's make that.
So the JSON file was like an export of all the content that you needed from this place to the other. And then you got this thing and you go load it in, and now it's got all the context it needs.
Exactly. Yeah, because the JSON file was an export from the website. It was too large for, to upload into this AI brain. So I built an app that can parse the JSON file, pull out the stuff we need, and I can sort it by date. So I just want the stuff from 2025 because we open source everything that's older than a year anyways. So get the stuff that's behind the paywall, turn it into PDFs or HTML files, and then upload those to the AI mind.
What do you mean you wrote the code? Is that little Google's help, or how'd that work?
No, it was all the AI. Yeah, I didn't write any code.
But it was code. It used, you together with it, you ended up with code that it used to filter out what it needed, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing that Bryce, as a non-software developer with no background in it at all, is able to vibe code to a point where we're getting productivity and content enhancements and everything else. And then beyond that, it enables, it's also still the first inning, like the top, first pitch, let's call it the first out of the first inning. Yeah. And so just imagine in 6 months how you're going to be able to just tell your computer to do stuff, or even in 2 years, just how interactive being able to create content, code, web apps, vibe stuff, whatever you need in your life to make it better and more productive. You just tell your computer and it uses AI to create it.
I had a similar experience last week. I was working on, except mine was down in creating back-end code, not the full app with the front end to it and all of that kind of thing. So it's a, coming at it from a different angle, but it was still have the conversation with the AI and together work on whatever. And I was making this thing that has to do with ontologies. We don't have to get into it, whatever, but it was fairly complex stuff. And in 3 days, I, with it, wrote over 1,000 lines of a module. It's 1,000 lines of code and fully functional that, it connects to AI in a couple places and parses through stuff and whatever.
So John, Palantir's big moat, for example, is their ontological approach and years of building ontological framework for AI in various applications and industries. When I hear you say that, and I hear Bryce doing what he's doing, and just how good are the moats going to be here in 5 years? Or does the importance, we sold Autodesk this last week because it feels like they're not all in engaging, investing everything they can in making their data make the best AI designer stuff in the world. And it feels, as Bryce is doing all of this and watching the AI revolution play out in real time, it feels like the AI itself is getting to the point where it doesn't necessarily need Autodesk's unique code and data and reality embracing of how gravity needs to be designed and architecture and stuff, because the AI itself is doing that. It's encompassing that. And I just are the moats around the world just going to slowly disappear because everybody can do what they want, just talk?
Or is it like some things, is it that what Autodesk had that was a moat becomes actually a liability for them because they were all in on doing it a certain way, and have a lot of very proprietary code to go handle a certain thing. And then, as you pointed out, AI now does that thing without what they were doing,
Right.
and that makes you wonder, like, what do you think about Adobe?
Oh, same thing. A perfect example. I'm glad you brought it up. Like the exact same analogy. It's like for 20, 30 years, people would pay way too much money to have a subscription or a disc originally that would allow them to use software to make pictures and to edit pictures and to put text in pictures and to make better presentations. And like Adobe's moat seems gone. You literally can just talk to like 10 different websites, LLMs, applications on your smartphone and make the better, the most amazing gorilla picture carrying your daughter on his shoulder.
Yeah. I don't know, though, from what I've seen with stuff that we're up to, they seem to be maybe trying to be a little smarter than Autodesk about it, where they are kind of looking what's out there and trying to rapidly incorporate and then go, yeah, you could get these 10 things, but it's 10 different things, and we integrate, and you'll be able to come to us to one place for the video and the image and the whatever. And they seem like they're trying to play that game. I don't know.
I think you're totally right, John. For the last year and a half, 2 years, Adobe seems to have clearly at least seen the threat that AI presents and to have gone all in as selling themselves as an AI company that is the best way to do image and video generation still. I think those LLMs, the AI applications are already better at and easier to interface with than Adobe. And Adobe's edge has already disappeared. And I think Autodesk is slightly, I guess it's not a perfect analogy because you're hitting on some nuances that are different. Autodesk is has been slower to try to get all in on AI, but they actually have a bigger moat because, making architecture designs that actually don't collapse is it's a moat. But
it's a niche too.
It's a niche, but I think it is disappearing anyway.
Yeah.
John, Bryce, your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah. I mean, one of the interesting topics that's come up, there was an interview with OpenAI scientist John, and he was talking about this very thing. And he was saying, really, what is your proprietary data? And he was talking about it's really just the culmination of hours of human labor doing things, right? So like drawing blueprints was originally done by hand, and then we figured out how to do it with computers. So it's computer aided design. And if you have an AI with a huge amount of compute behind it, you could have the AI make synthetic data with all of the knowledge that humans have and make those drawings for you, and you could basically recreate a data package, right? That you could then take that data package and train a new AI on that, and now you've replicated what Autodesk took 60 years to build, sort of. I mean, we're not there yet, clearly, but that was the premise of how he thinks that things are changing with the proprietary data.
There was a workflow that like Autodesk or any other kind of tools along those lines for architects would do that involved these like layers of what had to get figured out for different aspects. And if you got an AI and it just jumps to the answer and you can't like get to those in between points, then it's not an answer. It has to actually do the work and show the work on those in betweens. So there's maybe some more to be done there. The other thing about Adobe, they were going to acquire Figma, and then they dropped the deal. And I know from working in the industry that uses this stuff that Figma was like eating their lunch. And so if they drop acquiring Figma when Figma is still like Figma came out and it was just incredible. It's like, how can you do that in a web like page, and have all the intricacy of a million kind of little shapes and layers and things. And it was doing what it needed to do to kick Adobe's butt, at least in the web design space. So I don't know how that plays out, either.
Yeah, it is fascinating seeing, how quickly the AI revolution is disrupting even what had been, what you thought were big moats, software as a service, high growth companies. And some of this stuff was overhyped. Like maybe Autodesk ends up actually figuring it out and having major moat and, like competitive advantage versus the LLMs. And so I don't want to make it sound like this game's over. These are still, all of these pucks and skaters are still moving around, and we're just trying to figure out, which I don't think Wayne Gretzky ever actually said this, but we're just trying to figure out where this.
I think if I were them, I'd be trying to make a foundation model that took my years and years of Autodesk, let's say, kind of data in the way that you had with like maybe probably Unreal Engine, and you went from that to like a Sora. It's like, if you know how this stuff is done and there's the language of create, use the language of Autodesk as the output of the LLM to go make what's missing there. So, something like that.
Unreal Engine's another example there of, I think, a moat that might be disappearing before our eyes. Unreal Engine, to give some context here, is basically Unity has its own version. What's it called, Bryce or John?
Unity 5, or there's two though. There's Unity and Unreal.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever. Unity's what, Bryce?
Unity. The name of their engine is Unity.
Okay, so there's a Unity engine and the Unreal Engine, and they basically forever have been like what the platform upon which video games are built. So if you're Take-Two Interactive and making the latest Y2K NBA 2K basketball game, or your
Grand Theft Auto,
most of these games have been built using the platform that just sort of, again, it's almost ontological. It provides some context of how gravity works in a video game setting, and
physics engine.
Yeah. And so and John, that would be ontological.
It maybe it doesn't do the ontology stuff, but it's
an ontological framework.
Okay.
Anyway, the point being that these Sora and these AI video generation engines that you can just go to on ChatGPT or Gemini is like, it seems to be encompassing that physics reality just off of its training. And so the importance of those physics platforms to create video games are disappearing, and now people literally are going to these Grok or Gemini AI or whatever and vibe coding first-person shooter video games, and it's the first out of the first inning. Just imagine in 2 years the video games that some creative 13-year-old kid in his mom's basement is going to create, that's going to blow everybody's mind.
Have you seen, this was like a couple of weeks ago, there was a video, on YouTube or something, and it was just lots of cuts to different places, like people being on the street interviews and, all different things. And it was like, everybody was like, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think about the fact that you're not real? And like nothing was real, but everything looked very real. And you're like, okay, because now it's like not just, before it was like, okay, this video, now you can put voice to it and move the lips correctly and have it be wherever. And there you go. It's catching up to Hollywood.
I think what hit me so strongly from this investing perspective is that software has always commanded premium valuations, and now there's this big overhang on software because everyone is questioning whether AI might replace this software, right? And nobody knows for sure, and some software companies will probably be fine, some won't. But because there's now this threat to the entire industry, valuations come down, and you don't get 20 or 25 times sales for most software companies. Whereas, before AI, a lot of software companies would get those crazy high valuations. Now, like 4 or 5 do.
And on that note, it is interesting from an investment perspective that software forever had the higher gross margins than, say, semiconductors, and certainly higher than just servers and computers and generalized hardware. But the semiconductor versus software analogy is interesting because NVIDIA's gross margins have gone from 40% to 50% to 60% to now over 80%. And software gross margins have, like, for example, even Microsoft is forever sort of diversified out of its software businesses, and gross margins went from 95% to 85% to 75% and on down. And it is interesting that you can actually see the moat in gross margins. Like, you can see NVIDIA's got a bigger moat than Microsoft right now. That wasn't the case 15 years ago.
It's not straight up like hardware has better gross margin than software. It's that better moat has a better gross margin than not better moat.
Correct. I think that's what, and that's probably it's almost like a truism. It's always been that way, and that's why it is. That's why you can have higher gross margins, because you have a bigger moat. You can charge more.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we don't hit on the single biggest AI revolution development over the last ever would be yesterday's robo-taxi launch by Tesla in Austin. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody died. Nobody got hit. No accidents yet. There will be accidents at some point. There are accidents when people drive. There will be accidents, probably because of human drivers more likely than the car itself, than the car driving, full self-driving autonomy stuff. But it will happen. But let's just, can we just step back for a moment and acknowledge that if we have $30,000 cars that are able to actually fully drive people around major cities, we have changed transportation. Not we, the world. Tesla has changed the world's transportation forever.
Well, first, weren't they going to be down to like $20,000 cars? The one that has no wheel and it's straight off the line and so forth. The Model
Fair
2.
enough. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, wasn't they taught? At least I heard. I don't know if maybe it's just a kickoff thing, but like a flat rate. Like,
that's just for now. That's just a marketing ploy. $4.20, $4.20.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and taxes were 69 cents.
Yeah, they got to be smoking something to use that.
Rob Gronkowski humor for you, ladies and gentlemen. Elon Musk and Rob Gronkowski. Those are a couple of guys.
It's just a little scary to the world that
he's just being funny.
The humor that.
By the way, he published his drug tests the other day, and he said he wasn't doing drugs, and the tests showed he's not doing drugs. So he's not out there. He even said, he was like, dude, I smoked pot one time on Joe Rogan. And
I don't know what's scarier.
I took he's not doing a prescription at one point 5 years ago to get out of depression, and it worked. Like, that's what he said.
But what's scarier, that he's not doing drugs or that he behaved as erratically as he did while not doing drugs?
Dude, if you followed Elon Musk at all, you know the guy's erratic. Like, he's all in all the time. Yeah. And that's gonna there's a lot on the line all the time.
Yeah. So anyway,
at any rate, dude, the launch worked.
Let me say.
No, please.
The launch worked. So no, I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. A step that we'll tell our kids about. Like, we'll say, you were alive, but you didn't pay attention. This happened. This important thing. I at work today used it as an example of something, which was we have some new feature that we introduced to our customers, and it was like, oh, we got to make sure it doesn't like screw up. It's important that it works and everything. And it was that notion of geofencing where the robotaxi went and took an area of South Austin, however big, but they said it's just this, and they go do it, and then they can like expand off of that as a way to be like, we'll make it work, and then you'll as it gets bigger, it'll still work. It's like a risk thing. And we used a similar, it wasn't geofencing, but a similar notion with the stuff that we introduced. So anyway, I'm very impressed, and I can't wait for it to get to the level of Waymo in terms of its saturation or whatever, and then to just zoom past that.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason once it starts doing that. That's
right. The Bryce has an older Model 3 that has like hardware 3, and we're on is it 5 now? They call it AI 4 or AI 5, Bryce. What are we on?
1 and 2.
The current cars are on hardware 4, AI 4, and then hardware 5 will be next.
So
4 is out.
4 is out. Yeah, like my Cybertruck has 4.
My wife has, I think, 3.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know how you can tell.
My Model S, Bryce's Model 3. You can actually go in. I think somewhere in the you look at your software. It should tell you what,
like some like a version number of
yeah,
the
hardware 3
of the hardware, and then and
that. At any rate, look, Elon's said that, hey, anybody who purchased full self-driving is going to, Tesla's going to have to eat it, but they're going to have to put in the AI 4 at that point.
When
5. And then give it the next 6 months to 18 months. I would think an announcement.
18 months, yeah. But they really need to do that, because yes, we've had self-driving from the beginning, but we really need to be up a level on the hardware.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, you know what? Even if they charged for it, I would do it.
Yeah, but I think they're going to do the right thing, because you paid for full self-driving and you didn't get it, and so they're not going to charge you for that. But again, to give that some context, it costs Waymo $150,000 to put LiDAR, radar, and 28,000 cameras on a single Jaguar, which costs $120,000 base price. So they're in for like $270,000 or $300,000 per car, and Tesla's going to be able to like switch out your cameras for the next generation's cameras, and it'll cost them $500 in labor and $1,000 in cameras.
Hey, let me ask something. So we're watching the video about the robotaxi driving around. There was delivering the guy to St. Edward's in Austin, and St. Edward's University. And Marcy's looking at it. She goes, if that is just a Tesla using full self-driving to do that, then why can't my car do that? What's the difference between is just the software? We just said the thing about hardware, but
it's the hardware. That's it.
So it's on 5. Robotaxi is on, because lots of people have 4 out there.
Yeah, no. Okay. The difference between your wife's car and those is hardware and software. Mm-hmm. And the difference between I don't have a Model Y, I've got the Cybertruck, and it's a different issue. But if you have a brand new Model Y and you paid for full self-driving, you are one iteration behind those taxis.
The robotaxi is using software that's a little bit,
correct, just that kind of difference. And they're going to send that software out to all of the people who paid for it, even before you're able to truly, even before you're in the area where it is able to do full self-driving unsupervised. But you will get that next iteration within the next few weeks if you have a brand new Model Y with the latest hardware.
And that area is determined by Tesla and in cooperation with a local government that says, yes, you're allowed to do this here?
Yeah, always. I mean, you're going to have to, get local permit and everything. But so you can expect, especially because there's already been trails blazed there by Waymo, et cetera. Elon said next is San Francisco. But the low-hanging fruit is going to be like San Francisco, Austin, Atlanta, where also Waymo's already at. You'll see it, and I bet they'll. And then it'll be like, state regulations will also play a part. So Texas, you're already in Texas with that. So then it'll probably be Dallas, and then and Las Cruces, New Mexico, where Bryce lives, is hopefully sometime next year.
Yeah, I signed up to be on the beta tester. Whenever it comes to your area, you can go on the website and sign up. So it's just a matter of time, right? Mm-hmm.
Software and then permission from the locality or whatever it is.
Well, and that's part of why I think mistakenly the market really got excited about Elon and Trump being best friends, because somehow that meant that Trump or his federal bureaucracy at some point was going to give rubber stamp to whatever Elon wants to do with full self-driving, and it'll override all the state and local regulate. That's just not how the world works anyway. So I think you're going to it's going to be a process. It'll be city by city, but there are 2 million Tesla cars that have the potential to have their hardware upgraded and downloaded with the latest software, and then turn on as full unsupervised self-driving autonomous level.
And I own one of those. So let's say I own one of those. I own a new Model Y. do the new Model Y come anyway with that monitor facing the back seats, just because it's like, the backseat passengers can watch a movie, like it's a thing that's in the car? Okay.
It's already there. Yeah.
It's already there. So then can I buy one of the Model Ys, how soon until I'm my own taxi company?
So, Bryce, I mean, this is a matter of debate, right? I would say 18 months again, just to sort of let it permeate, get established. Tesla's going to do it with their own owned vehicles first to establish, a baseline, how it's going to work, and even like this, the brand, the reputation, the quality of the product, they can control. The cars will be clean, etc. And eventually, they'll have, call it, I'd say 18 months to 36 months.
So if you had say you had a fairly high percentage of people who decided, who were Tesla customers, Tesla drivers, who decided to kind of opt in on this and just go ahead and do that, how big would that make the fleet be? Like if I had 50% of Tesla users, how big is that fleet compared to the Uber people that are in my town?
I can tell you right now, Bryce, you answer the question. I'll look up how many number of Uber drivers.
Like are in my town?
No, yeah. I'll do you, Bryce. How many Teslas are on the road is what John's asking. That could
versus how many Uber drivers. If you said there's this many Tesla drivers on the road, there's this many Uber drivers on the road, Tesla flips the switch on this, all of a sudden.
Yeah. So John, there are 1 to 2.5 million Uber drivers in 2022. That's in the U.S. alone.
That's fine.
So so call it 3 million. Let's round it up. 3 million U.S. Uber drivers.
How many Teslas on the road?
Just in the U.S. There are 2 million Teslas on the road in the U.S.
2 million?
Yeah.
So
say 10% of them sign their car up for the fleet. That's 200,000. That's 1/10 of Uber's driver base.
That's enough to drive down.
There's no tip on a Tesla because the costs are $30,000 for the Model Y and not, a car and a driver and everything else. The actual ride will be probably 50 to 70% of what the Uber, so call it 30 to 50% less what an Uber is. And the Uber driver can only drive 10 to 12 hours a day. And the Tesla can go 24 hours a day, except for when it's charging. So call it 23 hours a day.
Like another way to look at the business model on it or something would be like, I don't want to manage people, get my car, whatever. I'm going to kind of hand it over to the Tesla fleet for those 22 hours when I'm not using it. And it will manage for me just like a property manager.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elon said that it's a combination of Uber and Airbnb. It's the model is a combination of Uber and Airbnb, which is what you just described, John.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're basically, when you buy the car, you're buying an asset that's going to ultimately pay for it, not only pay for itself, but ultimately make money for you.
That's what Elon has promised for 3-4 years in a row, that it will be the first car that actually appreciates in value when you drive it off the lot. Let me know. I'm still saying it's 18 months to 36 months away before you generate money with your Tesla. I think Bryce is a little more optimistic than me. That saying, Bryce, when do you think you'll be able to turn your Tesla into a robo-taxi in Las Cruces for the weekend?
I'm going to say this time next year.
So, but regardless of when the starting gun is, what if that happens, or do you think that is the case from there forward?
Yeah, then it's the game. I mean, the transportation's changed forever. Soon thereafter, Tesla rolls out robo vans, robo buses, robo semis,
robo bookshop, robo coffee shop. You hop into the van and you're there, have a cup of coffee while you're getting wherever you're going.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of, trillions of dollars of potential revenue with very high gross margins. So,
and this is just robo vehicle. Then you've got robo robot.
Yeah, we're not even talking about the Optimus robot.
Yeah.
And look, we're not blind bulls. Like, there's a long road ahead, and one geofenced area in Austin for 2 days does not make a $10 trillion revolution. It's going to be.
I don't think he's a blind bull. I think he's a patient bull. Like, when you got into it 10 years ago, you're like, at some point, and I'm young enough, so like at some point is good enough.
Technically, it was 6 years ago that I bought Tesla, but point well taken.
Yeah, technically, you held up 7 fingers when you said that, but
this was this. I maybe did that, but I meant this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just a wise ass, but you knew that coming into it.
I did know that. You're rough on me. Always have been.
Oh, by the way, when I saw the...
I'm like the nicest guy to you, and all you do is pick on me.
Is that true, Bryce?
I've never picked on you ever, John.
Never, ever?
Never.
Okay. Now we know it's not true. There it is. Okay. So, but the thing about the Optimus, like, it was just a couple weeks back, there was a new video, and just before the video happened, I was like, there's all these different robots and everything. Remember, I was talking about this Chinese one that does this or that and kung fu and so forth. And I was like, the Optimus just seems so like slow and fragile and whatever. And then like the next day, a video comes out of the Optimus dancing, like doing Running Man and doing whatever. And I was like, okay, never mind.
Literally, the most amazing thing of that dancing video is seeing the Optimus robot's ankles. Like, that's part of those dance moves. Like the knees, the hips, the ankles, everything is like coordinated and looks like a good athlete. And John, when it comes to the Chinese robots versus the Optimus robot, I mean, I think the quality of the hardware is on a Tesla is going to be, like if you've ever been in a crappy BYD EV in China, you know what I'm talking about. There's even the worst, lowest quality Tesla is 10 times higher quality than a BYD EV. And the robots will probably be the same thing. There will be some really cool Disney R2-D2 robots built on NVIDIA's platform, built in China and imported, and probably with some sort of tariff because Trump or his predecessor in the Republican.
Hey, easy. Last time he went off. Here we go. So Tesla has a couple. They have, they can like mill almost any, they can decide what they want to make and just make it. They have the kind of vertical integration of that, of putting together and going, give me a roll of steel and out the other end will come whatever, a car, a rocket or whatever. So they can make all that stuff. And then they have the expertise of, what's it called? Design to manufacture, like where as you're designing, you have in mind how those pieces are going to come together. So they're just experts. And then scale, they have scale. So they're experts at all of that.
And John, perhaps most importantly, they have the technological prowess and the U.S. base to make developers an ecosystem, and the Optimus platform becomes an operating system that has infinite number of apps and services that you can download. And so you could buy the fun dancing robot from China, or you can buy the Optimus robot, download the dancing app, and when it's not dancing, it's taking out your garbage. And when it's not taking out your garbage, it's babysitting your children. And all right, maybe.
Yeah, actually, the whole multi-purpose thing is a really important question because, when we watched the dancing, did they load it up and at that moment it was just a dance bot where, there's all these things, or can it like actually flow from one to the other? And do you know, I don't know the answer to this. Do you know, are they using the NVIDIA platform that does, they're not. So I'm talking about the platform that does the whole 3D world of the thing working in its animated place. And once it gets it, it comes out and does it in the regular world.
Bryce, we should clarify. Look, you never want to say Elon's not playing with stuff. Like, I'll guarantee they are using elements of NVIDIA's robotics platform. But Tesla has been building from the ground up to this moment, before NVIDIA had released their robotics platform to developers. Bryce, can you add color to any of it?
I would say I don't know that we know for sure that they're not using some of NVIDIA software like the Omniverse and that sort of thing to help with the modeling sim. They call it sim to real. And so they could be doing some of that, but the hardware in the robot is definitely the Tesla, FSD chip modified for the robot.
Yeah,
and
right.
Probably the Dojo supercomputer has been helping train the Optimus.
Well, for sure, but the Dojo doesn't answer the question of what the NVIDIA is doing with that other piece.
Yeah, John, I think it goes back to sort of that stacks of layers of code and hardware, and I don't know that you could peel out and say there's no NVIDIA in this hard Tesla solution at all. But I think Tesla's got major differentiation in a lot of the development and its interfacing with the physical world because of all the work they've done with the full self-driving car interface.
Yeah, but there's a piece there that where it's kind of like the LLM of the motion world, where you get from like talking about something to going and actually doing it, where it is separate stuff unless you are using one of these, what's it called, like a world model, and what's his name who runs the AI at Meta, the French guy,
John
LeCun. He's got the technology called VJEPA, V-JEPA, and it's different. It's different than the LLM stuff. And this is a tangent. I think though, there's a dependency in that kind of stuff where do you really get what's going on in the world where you are? And could you tell, like, if you're in a scene that, that thing just fell off the table, a second from now, it's going to be broken all over the place or whatever, because it can predict like what goes on in the world. It's world model. And it's going to be an important piece for all of them. And I don't know if Tesla is actually going to make that from scratch themselves, or they're going to go.
And that's what I'm saying. They've been working on it from scratch, but I would bet along the way they are at least looking at incorporating layers of technology from partners like NVIDIA.
One thing they did say, John, is that when they had this is the Tesla guy speaking, but they said they had a breakthrough and trained their AI model based off of just watching a YouTube video. And so I don't know that they necessarily used like a world model, because you can use the world model to like have the AI run different iterations of the training, right, and then start to fine tune it. But they did say that they just showed it a YouTube video.
Yeah, I forgot they said that. That's right. And that's really good. It doesn't answer the whole question, but it definitely is a huge step forward to be able, because if it went from, you got to have all this person in a suit doing this or that and having it imitate whatever their thing. And now they're like, no, we get a first person video and it can just see it. And then it can, it was a huge step forward. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yeah. All right, last words, fellas.
Oh, damn, I wasn't ready. My last word will be Cody is not a scammer in any way. So
that sounds like the old "he doth protest too much" shit.
I just want to make sure it's covered. I didn't.
No, John, it's fine. It's all fine, but you could, like there's time and place. But at any rate, look, I think give me.
I said it then too.
Give me an AI last word, something that people can take away.
All right, go ahead, Bryce.
I mean, we've been pounding the Google table for a few months now, but the stock sold off in the last couple of days because there's more news about them being replaced by AI and antitrust and all this stuff. And I'm just going to pound the table on Google once more and say I think it's an amazing AI investment for the next 10 years.
Good. I like it.
I'll say it's not because I was the one most picking on them, and I've seen more and more that they got some amazing stuff. So
cool. I think the takeaway, my last words will be that AI is impacting the world more than even the most ardent bull realizes already right now.
Good one.
John, we need your last AI words.
It's in the realm of this stuff, what Bryce was talking about with what he built and how, it's not intuitive. The fact that, demand goes up. So you think that it's knocking people out of jobs and so forth. And what it's actually doing is opening up possibilities. So I think that's starting to prove itself.
Amen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. As Amaris likes me to say, thank you, goodbye, gracias, and adios.
See you later, guys.
Okay,
Thank you.